And I did put oh, we're live. Hey,
Oh,
I
yes,
was
sir.
just gonna start. Hi, it's Heidi's channel, everyone. It's me. I'm David, and I'm here. Hi, Heidi. Oh, you're over here.
Hi, David. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. And as you can see, I am here with David Lightbringer. It's so awesome to have you here tonight.
Yes, and I was just saying, I put out the word in my Discord,
Oh,
so
thank
I
you
should
so
see some
much.
of my people rolling through.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That
David's been
Alice
on the
Rivers thumbnails looks, I mean, I want to click on it right now. I'm like trying to click on it, but
Oh,
I'm here, so I
awesome.
better
Yeah.
start saying something interesting, huh?
No, well, no, what I was going to do is first off, welcome you. And, you've been on the channel a few times, and I always appreciate your point of view coming here. Hey, Alicia. And so I have you here tonight to talk about the latest episode, but maybe also you can, since you haven't been on all season, give me like sort of your general thoughts so far. But before we do that, if anybody doesn't know you, I'm sure they do. Why don't you just tell them a little bit about yourself, David?
Well, I'm the symbolism guy out here on the internet. I like the mythology, wear t-shirts with the mythology. This is King Aegon,
Mm-hmm.
King Icarus Aegon, crashing the solar chariot. Yeah, we do. And this, by the way, there's some debate. I'm not sure if it's Lucifer or Icarus or just some other fallen angel, but it's all the same idea. Archetypes. That's how it works. So yes, I did think about that actually. Aegon flying the dragon Sunfire. It's a pretty good Icarus. He's sort of a young, irresponsible guy taking the solar chariot out, crashes it, um,
Mm-hmm.
with the
That's
long
like
night
Greek
parallels
mythology,
right
right?
there.
Is that Greek mythology, Icarus,
It
flying into the
would be,
sun?
yeah. Of course,
Yes.
it's all. Yes, that is Greek mythology, correct.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I my channel's David Lightbringer, and I'm mostly into the books, but I cover the show pretty thoroughly and try to do my best at it. I started off
Mm-hmm.
doing symbolism. I now cover all aspects of storytelling, but of course, the mythology story symbolism angle is always close to my heart. But the House of the Dragon is a comedy show. I mean, that's clear, I think.
Well, it's funny because we were talking last week. I said I don't feel like it's as funny as Game of Thrones, but do you find it really funny?
I do. I think
Funny,
I'm
haha.
laughing harder at this show. Although maybe
Okay.
it's been a while. I don't know. Maybe I was
Yeah.
younger and more worried about the changes from the canon. I mean,
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
David,
No, I don't know. It's the same kind of unintentional humor, right?
sure. Well, so while I have you in the hot seat, so we're 6 episodes in. So would you mind telling me your sort of overview? What do you think of the show? Like I was on your channel and, I got a bit of a hint of what you've been talking about, but I was wondering as a season, what you think. And I know obviously you talk about a lot on Twitter as well. So would you mind giving me your general thoughts of the season so far?
So, yes, I think that it has been a little uneven. It's maybe
Mm-hmm.
the word I would use. In particular, I was very excited about the writing in episode 2, and then thought episode 3 was like kind of it's not even that the episode was terrible, but the dialogue quality is what kind of really drove off a cliff. And there were maybe other aspects of the episode that were cool. And the one we just saw was, I thought, another standout. In fact, those were kind of my two favorites, 2 and 6. Obviously, 4, the battle was great, but I don't know that I loved everything before the battle. Was only, I would say, okay. So it's been a lot uneven. There's been a few scenes that had me scratching my brain, broke my immersion maybe a little bit. I'm generally pretty gullible as a viewer. Like, I'm easy to be immersed in a show. I want to be immersed. I'm not looking to hate watch things. I'm very against that sort of way of consuming media. So I kind of just note I think about things as storyteller, I think. So there's,
Mm-hmm.
when I disagree with something, I just like, oh, what can I learn from this decision and think about how to do it different. But I'm enjoying the show. It's really good. It is veering more towards a Game of Thrones territory where I'm starting to judge it scene by scene more than episode by episode. So some scenes I feel like are really bringing characters to life in a way that enriches my understanding of the universe. And other scenes I kind of maybe feel a little bit like filler, or they're just running in circles, or following their different idea of a character that's, okay, doesn't appeal to me or whatever. But yeah, so I would say the first season was a little better. Um, this season has been as good in points, but overall has been more uneven. That's my grand take. But there's some really interesting stuff going on. And I was very interested in how the show would pivot to becoming a proper war show. You know, no more time skips, none of that. Like, we're grinding through a war. It's going to be a lot of awful battles, and we've set up all these characters so that we can begin knocking them off and whacking parts of their face and body off and burning things and all the rest. So
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things just from the chat. So I've got a few of my usual group are here, and so we're just doing things a bit different tonight. So it's just David and I going to hang out and have a chat. It's going to be a bit of a shorter stream, so we're not going to go into the wee hours like we sometimes do, and it gets crazy. But next week we'll have like probably a regular panel again. So I just wanted to give David a bit more attention and time, and give him an opportunity to share his amazing gifts. So I'm really glad you're here.
you can try to
And
blame me if you want, but the truth is that you and I are cut from the same cloth, and
we
that
are.
cloth has many paragraphs in it. So
I love it. And also, I also want to mention that I do have David's all of his contact info in the not your email, your personal email or your cell phone or anything, but like your social media and your channel and so on. Yes, that's very private. No one can have that number.
I'm easy to
So
find. David Lightbringer, just put it in there.
yeah,
David Lightbringer Heresy, David Lightbringer Meteors. It'll come up. But
yeah. I don't even
I
know
just
your
put
real
out a
last
video
name.
today.
So
If I'm going to say
yes,
something
absolutely. Go ahead about it.
promotional,
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
how to claim your dragon. Excuse me.
I love it.
How to claim. So play on the, and I'm just talking about Seasmoke and the dragon bond. Before anything super heretical may or may not happen on the show, I wanted to say, yes, you have to be a lizard people. No matter what they say on the show, in the books, you got to be a lizard. So,
It's
talked
not
about that.
propaganda then? It's not propaganda by the Targaryens? Someone
Oh, it
was
is
saying
propaganda,
oh,
but
it
it's
is. Okay.
based on truth. And this is the
Okay.
thing that's interesting about it. Actually, this is a great discussion point. Is
Mhm.
like, yes, only the lizard people can bond with dragons. What's the point of being lizard people? What's the point of putting them in your story if you don't actually need to be a lizard people? And it makes sense. Like, if you've got reptilian DNA, then the dragon likes how you smell, maybe. So it makes sense. You can have a symbiotic thing going on. There may be some spirit ancestor stuff, but the lizard DNA thing is important. However, the Valerians and Targaryens aren't any different than humans other than that. They're not smarter or stronger or wiser or long-lived or faster running. They're no more cut out to make decisions about people than anyone else. They just have this power of controlling the dragons. So, or, controlling. So I think the propaganda is interesting because of that one thing, they have come to believe that they are godlike and assert their ability to dominate and sit at the head of a feudal monarchy or whatever you want to call the Valerian Empire. Obviously, the Targaryens are a little bit better than the Valyrians were. So I think there's a lot of interesting commentary about propaganda and all this stuff. But yeah, the dragons, like every magic power in Ice and Fire, green seeing, or anything else, it's just a metaphor or an analogy, really, for power, for any kind of power, whether it's political power or magic power. George is interested in writing about how you use it and what's the effects of how you use it. And in particular, I think the way I would sum it up, Heidi, is that George does all the tropes in his story, but he's always asking the question of, well, this fantasy trope that people throw around so easily, what would it really be like if you could climb on the back of dragons? What would that be like? What would the people be like who grew close to dragons? It's like, oh, well, they would be gnarly lizard people. They'd have some weird supremacist doctrine, and they might enslave other people and become really horrific slave lords. Yeah, that is what would happen. So these are like thought experiments that George is doing. As much as I think some people would like the idea that, like, oh, there's no supremacy, everyone's the same, it's all BS. But like, no, they're lizard people. That's part of the thing. So.
Well, while we're on that topic, did you want to talk, we can go a bit out of order. Do you want to talk a little bit about Addam being pursued by Seasmoke and what happened there? Because there were a lot of questions I think a lot of people had about that.
What was your take on Seasmoke and Addam?
Well, I guess, speaking of what you were saying about the smell, the pheromones, perhaps, I was thinking because technically speaking, he would be Laenor's half brother. Was that correct? And therefore, because Seasmoke had bonded with Laenor, who my understanding is, more about the lore, but a dragon won't try to claim a rider or vice versa if their rider is dead or is alive, I should say. So this sort of indicates maybe that Laenor is dead. Maybe you can fill that in a
Yeah, I
bit.
think they're giving us the same POV as Rhaenyra has. We don't know. The dragon's just
Hmm.
restless, and in a week or two, she'll get a letter. Probably next episode, she'll get a letter. Laenor has died, and then
Hmm.
that'll be like, yeah, it's not something they were going to spend a lot of time on. I If they wanted to go the route of there's a way to release the dragon bond, I would have bought that. You know, we make the joke Arya throwing rocks at the direwolf. The dragon's intelligent, so potentially the rider might be able to like communicate the desire to part ways. But at the same time, it's a magic link, so maybe you can't get rid of it, and maybe he
Hmm.
has to die. But he was that was a show change anyway. So the show
Yeah,
just
and
didn't
some
want to
people,
kill him right then. I think we gave him a few extra years to go run around.
yeah. And some people were saying online, I don't know, this song, like, did the song kind of like awaken Seasmoke? Like, did that sort of stir something in him? Sorry, I'm not sure if it's a girl or boy, to be honest.
It seemed to call him over to the plinth.
Hmm.
And it's the same song that Daemon sang. And the meaning of the song has to do with the dragon bond. It certainly sounds like it is meant to awaken an ancestor spirit inside the dragon. That is how I read it.
Hmm.
Winged fire breather, winged leader. That's what I call that song. But
Yeah,
it
and
does seem to be part of queuing up the bond. Did that cue him up to then go bond with Addam? Maybe. Hard to say. I'm guessing that it's just an aid. It's probably not necessary, but maybe it gets the dragon in the mood. Maybe it pacifies the dragon. The dragon responds to Valyrian commands. So if they sing
Mhm.
that song at certain times when they feed it or when they come to talk to it, maybe that's part of setting its expectations for what's going to happen, something like that.
Yeah, Tatiana's mentioning Sir Darkland. I mean, I kind of okay. I didn't know from the book what happened to him, but I it seemed to be the setup seemed to be there. Sir Darkland was, we were mentioning it last stream, like someone's gonna be burned. So what were your thoughts on that scene for poor Sir Darkland?
Yeah, the sacrifice. Some
Yeah.
people are wondering if like that him being burnt by the dragon did something like blood magic wise, and I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say. But it definitely seemed to like Seasmoke left the cavern after that. He was so I got the impression I got was that he already had his eye on Addam, and when they tried to bond him with somebody else, he just went and found Addam. Was like, hey, they're
Yeah, that
trying to
makes
match me
sense.
with a Darkling.
Yeah, and also somebody said because even before he got on the dragon, he said, I did it" or something like that, right? And it's like, dude, you don't say that before you get on the dragon. So they thought that maybe that had, cursed him a bit. But I think the writing was already on the wall, and everyone was on, tenterhooks type of thing anyway. So it didn't feel like it was going to end well. And on top of that, he was in his armor, which horrified me. The idea that he was in his armor.
Yeah, he just didn't have the dominant pack leader thing going on.
Hmm.
And I watched Aemond's claiming of Vagar back and a couple other things, and you know, Vagar wakes up and brews up the fire like he's about to roast Aemond, and Aemond stands right there and commands him or her, rather, of course, Nana, excuse me, Nana. And that apparently was a test passing moment. Like Vagar's like, okay, all right. So let's Aemond climb aboard rather. But as soon as Aemond's aboard, Vagar gets up and does the back shake thing. And like Aemond's barely able to hang on. Then Vagar does a vertical takeoff, which leaves him hanging barely, and then straight into the dive bomb with the like really abrupt pull out. So like there's no question Vagar was testing Aemond to
Mhm.
see if Aemond could handle the dragon. And this is why some people are like, well, why didn't Daemon have Rhaenyra go try to claim Vagar when Lena died? It's like, well, because Vagar's a lot of dragon.
Mhm.
So so that's, I think that's interesting how the dragons are testing out their riders. And it's like he's been observing Addam. And he put Addam through. I was joking that like he put him through a little sprint, you know, testing his reflexes there. It mostly just seemed like he was running him down and he had already picked Addam. So I tend to think more that there was like maybe a psychic intuition on the dragon's part. Like the
Yeah.
dragon dreams are psychic, the Targaryens are psychic. Seems like maybe the dragons could have a sense of who they should bond with, right?
It kind of reminded me, the cute dragon in Shrek. She's got a crush on Donkey, and she's going after Donkey, and he's
People
like
are
totally
saying that in
horrified.
the live
But then,
stream.
oh,
Yeah.
were they saying that? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it was kind of cute. And I do remember there was another episode where he did see smoke, and again was kind of scared. But Seasmoke didn't come in anywhere near as close as he obviously did this time. So it's gonna be really fun because it looks like, based on the trailer, we can talk about this after. It's going to get picked up from where we kind of left off, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
Go
all
ahead, say.
it's fun to have these moments from the trailers that we know we're working towards. Like we knew at
Hmm.
some point Seasmoke and Rhaenyra's, you know, Seasmoke and Seasmoke's rider were going to confront Rhaenyra on the beach here. And so here we are. And now it makes sense. Be a pretty interesting scene. Um yeah, there's so many leaks on the internet that I just have to just wait and see what's going to happen
Sure.
with all this
Well,
stuff.
it was funny because there had been a leak a couple of weeks back, and they were talking about the scene with Daemon, that with the dream that he has where he thinks he's with his mother, and the love scene. And then I'd read actually that it was supposed to be Emma, like Viserys's wife, like his sister-in-law, I guess it would have been. And so I was like, so when I saw that it was his mother, I was like, oh my God, because at first I believed the leak, right? So it's interesting. Oh, hi, Lorelei. Thank you so much. Woohoo! Thanks for everyone who's here so far, by the way. I'm here with the lovely David Lightbringer, who is my special guest tonight. And we are talking all things House of the Dragon, episode Smallfolk. What'd you think of the episode title, by the way? Did you think that was a good name for it?
Well, yeah, okay. I love the small folk angle that the show has taken so far. I don't know if I'm the inventor of Team Small Folk, but I'm
You are.
definitely a bus driver for Team Small Folk or whatever it is. And you know, people sometimes get the small folk angle wrong. They're like, the main characters are royals. If George wanted us to really, you know, think about the perspective of the small folk, then he would have given us characters who are, and we do get Dunk. Brienne is kind of gets a small folk POV by hanging out with Pod Payne. Davos has come up. But really everyone is highborn. That is true. And
Hmm.
the reason is highborn people are the one with all the power in medieval society. They are just the people who have interesting lives and can shape everything with a couple of exceptions. However, all Team Small Folk means is just like what George is saying about war and power. You know, people play the Game of Thrones, the High Lords play the Game of Thrones, the people suffer. Or Danny's saying, you know, why do the gods make kings and queens if not to protect those who can't? Saying if you have power, if you have dragons or executive power, the first thing you need to do is think about how it affects other people and handle it responsibly. And this is obvious. This is not rocket science. Great power, great responsibility, but it's super important to stick to that principle in the middle of all this warfare and magic and stuff and really keep hitting it and be like, this is what it means. And so with the small folk, what the Team Small Folk just means that, like, yeah, we're thinking about the nobles and the people in power, but we're grading them and judging their decisions based on the idea that they are responsible for people. And we can't forget that, because then it's too easy just to stand, you know, total psychopaths like Aemond, whom I absolutely do stand. Oh, wait, we're not supposed to stand him. He's a great
Well,
villain. He's a
we were
great
talking
villain.
about, yeah, we were talking about that about Damon as well, because Damon, and I think this is what it is with these characters, are really compelling. So you can kind of root for them sometimes, like Walter White. you know, just because he's, you know, he's kind of a horrible person, you can still kind of root for him. And I think that's like, you know, a sign of excellent writing and really good cast. So just because Damon, you know, is in all intents and purposes sort of a horrible human being, you can still sort of say, "Oh, I really love this character. I think he's interesting," and I think Aemond for me too. It was interesting because you were talking about how well dressed he is online, which I totally agree with. I
Okay.
did notice something, and I have to double check, but it looks like he's usually in like an olive green, like the lighting is so dark and everything. But I did notice that his sleeves this past episode look black. So I'm wondering if they're kind of moving him over to the, you know, the dark side, like the Darth Vader.
I did. They were basically just slow playing it.
Yeah,
He's now becoming who he's supposed to be, and they were really just slow playing it. I noticed that in the
oops,
first few
sorry.
episodes of this season, he was hardly in any of the scenes, and I was like, yeah, they are keeping him for like the hidden knife. And then sure enough, he has really become an incredible villain over the past couple weeks. Very
Yeah,
compelling. And I think a lot of
absolutely.
people are misjudging him in the sense, not morally. He's tried to kill his brother, like clearly,
Yeah.
so he could take the throne. Let's not be, confused about that. But I think he's a lot more calculating and strategic than people think. Like that whole bit where like they dare defy me. I read that as a performance for the
Hmm.
small council. Like somebody who is unhinged is Aegon. Aegon is constantly, he does not have control of his emotions, right? So he's constantly flying apart, losing his temper, yelling, and then going calm again. And like he's unbalanced. Aemond is like, he's trying to play a little bit of that. But what he's really doing is he's like keeping his temper on a leash visibly for people. So he's got it under control, but people are always afraid that like he's capable of great violence. And so he does this serial killer thing where he speaks calmly and slowly to sort of assert reality. He rides over people constantly in the meeting, just like Otto
Hi,
Hightower,
Dante.
clearly learned from his father. And he's just got this dominating thing that he does. And so the idea of his temper is really, it's kind of like the dragon on the leash. And because he's not flailing around without control like Aegon, it's a lot more menacing and intimidating, because what if he does lose it? He could pull out his sword and just chop your head off, Maegor style. So I think he's learned to use fear as a tool because it came to him naturally, if you think about it. The Luke thing, he just meant to mess around with Luke. He didn't necessarily mean to kill him, but then he did kill him. And then so what? And this is like manslaughter essentially. And so after this, everyone's afraid of him. And he's like, oh, okay, I can use that. And so he's starting to wear that now. And then he killed Rhaenys and Mellies. And he sees Kristen Cole is terrified of him.
Mm,
And he's just
yes.
seeing, he's like, I can really use this as a tool. And so the final piece is he excommunicates his mother visibly, in front of everyone, as if to say, like, no one, don't think you can get close to me. There's no one that's close to me. No one has emotional leverage over me. Everyone needs to stay on their toes. And honestly, I think this rates as, like, when we talk about playing the Game of Thrones, this is like pretty good level of playing. He's not auto level because he's does have too much arrogance and too much like need to prove himself, which will probably cause him to make a foolish decision sooner or later. But he is more like Otto in that he's coldly ruthless and calculating and cunning, and he's willing to cut off people. He's not overly sentimental. And I even compared him to Lares, where they both are these really sinister, cold people, and they both are afraid of being laughed at in a way.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. That's a good
Because of
point.
their various disability or perceived weakness. But Lares uses the weakness as a trick to hide and be a snake. Whereas Aemond rather, he's the opposite. He's using power, dominance, and fear to dominate people. So it's really interesting. I was really digging into the character this past week, thinking about him a lot the last couple of weeks. And yeah, he's a great villain. in the end. But he's I think my point is that the Game of Thrones is designed to produce people like him.
Mhm.
You know,
I was going to say, like, I was doing this before, but like back to the Star Wars comparison. So, for instance, there's that sort of thing when people are sitting down at a table and you're standing and you're walking around and then you're standing behind them. Because you don't know what they're going to do, and it kind of reminds me of, I was just thinking about this again about Darth Vader, because Darth Vader would often stand when they would have their council meetings and things like that and walk around. So he was sort of showing his dominance. At least I was thinking that, as I was mentioning. Also, his sleeves seemed to be, I was like, is he going into the black? It looks like he's kind of going into the black. So I thought that was a great bit of non-verbal storytelling.
and we haven't seen people do that in the small council. Viserys sat, Aegon sat, and even when Aegon was standing, he wasn't controlling the room. He was sort of pacing around and waving his arms. Yeah, Aemond is doing a whole different thing. And that thing he did with Lannister in the back of the seat, oh my God, was that creepy.
Yeah, because it's like, we know that at one of the council meetings, poor Mr. Beesbury was what when they brought that up in this episode, they killed him during the council meeting in front of everybody. So yeah, you just never know. He could have just gone with his neck or something, and that would be it. Poor Tyland. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tyland's a bit of a douche, though.
He's every word coming out like, you can't mean to do that. That's not a good idea. Please don't kill me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, no, so I'm really, really looking forward to what we're going to see from him in the next
Nelson
few
in the
episodes.
chat has got
Hi,
this.
Nelson.
Yes, young Tywin is a good comparison. And Tywin,
yes.
I was pointing out earlier in the season, he was doing the Tywin thing of waiting to say anything in the meeting, let everyone else talk, and then coming down decisively like at the end. So there's Tywin and Otto, similar sort of politicians. Aemond is like a young version of one of those people. Yeah. And Tywin, when he's young, the Reigns of Castamere he did when he was like 16 or something. So
crazy. And how old is Aemond? Like I mean the actor is
19,
obviously older.
I want to say,
19,
but I'm not too firm on the show ages.
Yeah, it's a bit murky, right? Especially because mom is like, she's not that much older than the actors. So
Joffrey's the one who's like, is he 3 or 9? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So the other thing, well, I was going to say, so we're talking about Tyland, and then so his brother, I think it's his twin brother, Jason Lannister, was at the Golden Tooth.
The lions in the cage. Yeah, that's great.
Oh my God. But by the way, I'm going to say this. I think his outfit was my favorite costume in the season. Like, it was amazing, like with the pauldrons with the big lions on them, and just like actually all the uniforms on the Lannisters looked amazing. I absolutely love them. What did you think of their
I thought that it sort of connected the dots between him and Tywin and the descriptions of Tywin's armor. That's when you remembered, like, oh, the Lannisters, that's right, they're kind of like grills on grills on grills, they're just ornamentation on ornamentation. He can barely see out of all the gold and lion's paws. Like,
it was so good. Now, do you know, was that lion a CGI, or was it a real cat that they got for the show? Do you guys know?
I watched the behind the scenes, at least most of it, but I don't remember them saying.
Yeah, that was such a cool moment. And then I don't know much about is it the Leffords or Lafords? That other house, like the dudes wearing the blue and with the sun sigil.
I just like the looks that they threw each other after Jason goes by and he's like, can you believe that guy, to his like second in command? Like, damn, dude.
Well, I guess, okay, so that brings to question. So when you're a great house and you have a lesser house, I mean, there must be a lot of kowtowing that has to happen, because they're your lords in a way, right? So you have to serve them supper and you have to treat them.
And you have to suffer him when he's like, I have 5 times more, blah, blah, blah. Like, you just have to sit there and just kind of, yeah,
nod
cool.
and nod and smile. So, do you know much about that other house? I wasn't familiar with them.
No, it's just a castle in the Westerlands. It guards, it's important because there's only a couple of passes through the mountains there, and it sits athwart one of them. So it was key for Rob when he was moving around in the Westerlands, the Golden Tooth and like the Crag and places like that.
I always love it though when we get introduced to new houses. Like it's sort of, I mean, because I know Ryan Condal was talking about that they were going to be expanding the universe a little bit, even though we're still just in Westeros, but we're kind of learning about these other houses. And when I looked back, I did see that LaFords or whatever they're called, they were also at the tourney, like at Viserys's tourney. So when you go back and look, a lot of these lesser houses were kind of present there, just in very, very small ways. So I thought that was kind of neat.
I like how Ryan Condal is he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go all these places. We're going to the Twins and the Crag, and they're played up this Winterfell. Oh, we wanted to open the season with Winterfell. We didn't actually go to Winterfell. We just saw the outside of the castle. We skipped all the events that happened at Winterfell. We moved a tiny version of those events to the wall and made one conversation, and then like nixed all of that. We nixed Lady Jane with her girlfriends and using Jace as a beard, and like we skipped all that, and Sarah Snow and Pact of Ice and Fire and Vermax's eggs in the crypt, all skip. So there's a little bit of me that's like, okay, so you're making up a trip to the Twins, but we didn't do that. But I don't want to be that guy, But
yeah, it'd be like if I said, "Hey, everybody, come to Canada. I'm going to give you a tour of Canada," and then I just take you on the subway. And I'm like, "Okay, we're going to stop at all these little stops along the way, right?"
There's Winterfell. Can we go in? Oh, it's Monty Python.
No, we're not getting off the subway.
Camelot.
We'll
Camelot. It's only a model.
We're just going to stop at the subway. We're not getting off the subway though. No. So
let's not go there. It's a silly place.
It's like the cheap and cheerful tour. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
and then of course the Jane Eyre they gave us is incredibly boring.
Yeah,
she doesn't have any personality.
She's from she's Mother, right? We were chatting about that from
Dances
with Wilson.
The actor is fine. They just haven't given them anything to work with. Like they're not. The interesting thing about the character is that she prefers women, and she's leading the Vale, and she sort of maintains this pretense of looking for suitors and stuff, but isn't really. And it's funny. It's interesting. And then supposedly she makes Jace perform feats of prowess, to win over her side. And they could have at least given us something to start that rumor. And then when Rhaenyra's in the Vale, she's being courted by all the nobles of the Vale, and they're like drinking and hanging out and doing lordly stuff. And instead, Rhaenyra's just sitting on the floor, moping around with a doll. Like, and what's with them saying first 2 weeks ago, oh yeah, Rhaenyra tried to claim a dragon, it didn't work out, and we're all left to wonder which dragon and when. And then this week they're like, oh, all the dragons here at Dragonstone, they'll have nothing to do with her. So now she's apparently tried to claim all these dragons, and they all rejected her, but they didn't eat her or burn her. We don't know what happened. How does this affect her personality? It's just kind of wild as far as like, this is somehow Palpatine returned levels of like just filling things in, I feel like.
Yeah. And then I guess a lot of people are feeling that their Nettles isn't going to be in the show, and that probably they're going to give her the story arc of Nettles.
There's ways they could still bring her in, and I could understand if the whole thing was just to hold her until the next season. But what are they doing in the Vale with Sheepstealer? I don't know. This is we'll just have to see territory for me. I did make a Nettles video, and I went down all the angles. I will say that if Nettles isn't in the show, they are exploring the Smallfolk angle and the class angle, even without the character. So that to me makes it a little bit less bad. And the rest of it, I'll just judge on what I see. Like if they do a Rhaenyra Sheepstealer thing, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
By the way, like I didn't really understand this in the show. What was going on with Jane trying to kind of shoo them away and I think send them back to Essos? What was she planning on doing there? I didn't really get that part.
What is it now?
You remember when Jane comes in and she's like, "Oh, I've arranged your passage," and sorry, I haven't rewatched that episode. So, and then it sounded like she was just sort of like trying to shoo them away. Like, do you
Yeah,
think that
it's
was all
weird. I
of it?
don't know. Before, she wanted the dragons there, and they were
Hmm.
sent there, and then right away they're sending them away. I don't know. It's not
She
super
was mad
coherent to
about the
me.
dragon not being a full-size dragon. She felt like she got done a bad deal or something. Rhaenyra wasn't being
I'm not
completely
sure.
forthcoming. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was going on there.
It reminds me of the Rhea Royce thing, where
Yeah.
like it was a whole plot line that got condensed down to one scene, and we're just trying to figure out what's going on with it. Yeah, not sure.
Um,
my eyes are a little dry. I'm gonna put some eye drops in real quick. Go
oh,
ahead
sure,
though.
not a problem. So, and if anybody here in the chat has any questions, by the way, I'll just do while David sort of stepped out, I'll just say hello to people here. So we've got Nelson, Mink, Mr. Puddle, 30, Alana Wood, Dante, Lady Stoneheart, Kimmy G. My good friend Tatiana is here. Nakalini? Tell me how you say that. Lorelai. But if you're just joining, say hello and I'll bring you up on screen. Or if you have a question for David as well.
So the
Anything you
reason
want to
why
say.
they would cut Nettles, and I'm against it, but the reason why is to give Rhaena more stuff to do. One, to change Daemon and Rhaenyra's arc to be nicer to both of them, because now instead of Daemon cheating on someone and Rhaenyra going crazy about it, it'll be Daemon having some sort of father-daughter redemption thing with Rhaena, which could be interesting and compelling, just very different. And Rhaenyra could freak out about different stuff, but we're all waiting to see if we get book Rhaenyra at all. We have not seen her yet. They could be slow burning. There are signs moving that way, but she has not. We have not seen her yet. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking a little bit about how, even though she was, she was the heir, it didn't feel like Viserys was a very good dad in the sense that he didn't really prepare her for this role. Like, so Aegon was trying to take Jaharis to the council meeting, to say, hey, son, this is how, take your kids to work day. But it didn't feel like she was a cupbearer, but she didn't, she didn't really have the training. And that's one of the things we were even talking about Alicent is, as horrible maybe as we may think Alicent is, she wasn't really ever given the tools. So do you think that she's going to have to sort of learn on the job? Or do you think maybe someone like Myceria might counsel her in how to deal with the council? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I think we can see her trying to backfill her education, with the scrolls, and I think that some of this is on. I feel like Rhaenyra should be more politically savvy. I feel like it's obvious why she needs Mysaria, because Mysaria is a way of bringing information to her. Like up until Mysaria showed up, Rhaenyra apparently has no intelligence service and like no counselors really, except for just the idiots in the small council and Daemon who's not there, and Rhaenys is gone. So like people have brought up there's no ladies in waiting. It's
True,
so
except
it's
for
just kind of a skeleton crew at
Linda. Linda
Dragonstone.
is technically a lady in waiting. They kind of play her off a bit of a servant, but technically she is a higher born woman, so she should be like a handmaiden.
Gotcha.
But you're correct. Like there should be like you see. I'm trying to think of Marjorie Tyrell, for instance. She was always had flocks of handmaidens. Same with Cersei Lannister, but we don't really see that. Dany never did either, but I think she did have her team. She had her like core, right? Because she didn't grow up in the castle like these people did.
And then like yeah, Corlys he should be more present. He's just kind of there in some of these scenes. Some of the scenes are good, but some of them he's just kind of like he picked up the pin and put it in, and then like he did nothing after that. So the writing on the Team Black stuff is where I scratch my head a lot. I'm in some episodes Rhaenyra is more active and assertive, and other ones she is kind of just like she doesn't know what to do. So now to get to your question, no, Viserys didn't, he chose her to be heir, but still continued to treat her like a girl, quote unquote, instead of preparing her to rule. I often bring up the fact that Jaehaerys promoted both of his eldest sons, Aemon and Balon. I think Balon was hand and Aemon might have been master of laws, or might be backwards. But the point is, like, cupbearer is not next in line to monarch. So at some point when he fired Otto, he could have made Rhaenyra his hand. Or, I mean, there's a few things. I even brought up towards the end when he was getting really sick, he could have just abdicated and let Rhaenyra take the throne while he was still around to make sure that it happened.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. Is there a history of that? Do you know of where
A
someone has
little bit.
abdicated?
Well, so
I
Old
know
Bear.
in England that's happened, but
In England, yes. In Ice and Fire, well, I should say in medieval history, that definitely happens sometimes. In Ice and Fire, we have Old Bear Mormont. He takes the black so that Jorah can inherit while he's still in the prime of his life. Walder Frey doesn't do that, and so we see what's going on there. Then we have like Duncan, Prince of Dragonflies, who was a crown prince who gave up before he became king. He gave up that title and let it pass so he could go marry who he wanted to. So I think there's enough precedent where somebody who's as sick as Viserys and is king, if he wants to abdicate, who's going to say, no, you can't abdicate? Like, nobody can do that. He could just fire Otto's hand or whatever. I mean, I don't, yeah. So
Dante is asking, do you think Viserys himself was well prepared? He seemed to rely a lot on Otto's expertise.
Well, no, because, and this is the whole thing about letting the next generation take over at the right time, is that because Aemon and Balon died, potentially due to the Maester conspiracy, I don't just saying, because they both died, it now goes to the next generation. And so Viserys doesn't have a stronger connection to Jaehaerys. He didn't watch Jaehaerys rule in his prime. And so, yeah, he was not as well prepared and didn't do things the same way that Jaehaerys did. It's almost like he's trying to emulate Jaehaerys, but didn't understand how Jaehaerys really achieved that peace and stability. Like, he wanted to be a peaceful, prosperous king, but like Jaehaerys had some metal. He had, you know, the way he dealt with Rhaegar Baratheon, for example, and the faith as well.
Natural saying Viserys was the Joe Biden of Westeros.
Could have been. That's the parallel. Could have been.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You know,
but
maybe,
he didn't. He hung on.
But Otto, it doesn't sound like Otto made that recommendation, though. Like, Otto was sort of his advisor, he could have said, because he did talk about succession planning. I remember early in season 1, and he could have said, you know, when he started to get really ill, you know, Your Grace, like, maybe you might want to think about some succession and having your heir take your place.
So this is where the idea starts. So this is where the idea starts, is that thought exactly, is like Viserys should be able to see this coming. He could see he knows the Hightowers are ambitious. He can see they've got candidates to be king over there with dragons, and he wants Rhaenyra to take the throne, but he could see that Rhaenyra's on Dragonstone and the Greens are all around him on the throne, and then he just dies. He doesn't really do anything to try to ensure that transfer of power. He just sort of hopes for the best. And that is a large part of how we got here. So yeah, recalling like Rhaenyra to King's Landing, making her hand, stepping down, anything to deal with the oncoming, to cut off the green threat at the knees before they could seize the throne. I think that could have been done. But
it's like Robert writing a letter, you know, just as he's about to die. And then Cersei just sort of tears it up. Like, what is this?
Oh, it's a letter by a dead man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think those are all really, really great points. So I was going to say, where can we pick up next?
Well, people are asking about Helena's cricket line, which is an interesting one.
Great one. Yes, let's do that.
So a lot of people, the one I've seen online is that it refers to Aegon, because Aegon is not talking. He's not saying what happened or whatever. And maybe that's it. However, I would observe maybe Aegon fits into this. The crickets are all in cages, and they're kept in these cages, and they sing. And I noticed that in this episode, Helena and Alicent are wheeled around in the rolling cage, the royal carriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the line with Alicent and Rhaenys about making a window to your prison. And I was thinking, is this a commentary about the women in this story and how they are caged? And is there some sort of parallel? And I was trying to work it that way. I was like, well, who's not singing? But I didn't have a sort of punchline for that. I just noticed the symbolism of the cages, because it's Helena playing with the cage, and then they go and get in the cage right after that. So I was like,
Yeah.
that must be a thing, but I'm not sure who stopped singing. Yeah.
Yeah, someone was saying, I saw online, someone was saying they felt it referred to Darren, because you know how they I think it was Gawain talks about how Darren loves to sing and play the lute or something.
But he's not, he's about to start riding his dragon. He's not being
Mm-hmm.
silenced in any way. So that doesn't fit
Yeah.
to me. Somebody's
So-
saying Alicent got demoted. She was silenced. So that
yes,
it could be about her. Alicent is the one who walked in on Helena when she said it. So that would kind of make
Yeah.
sense if it was about Alicent.
So who are the other two in the cage then? One would be Helena.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't count the crickets, but I think it's just probably talking about the women in how their agency and their actions are constrained by society.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of Alicent, what did you think of, like, first off, her going up to her son and grabbing, like, embracing him, well, not embracing him, but just putting her hand on his face, and then he kind of did pull her hand away, didn't, like, what did you think? What do you think was going on in her mind at that time? Was she trying to assert her influence over him? Was she trying to be motherly? Like, what do you feel was happening there?
I think there was a little bit of too little too late mothering from Alicent with all her kids this episode. And she gets credit for trying. You always get credit for trying, but it obviously, there's generational stuff going on with the way that Otto used Alicent as a political pawn, and Alicent raised her kids as political pawns. And it's like, oh yeah, should I do some parenting? But with Aemond in particular, she's afraid. I mean, she's afraid of what he's becoming and all the power he has. And she was making one last effort to connect with him in an emotional way. And it's very important that Aemond took her hand away, because he's not only demoting her from the council, but he's removing the permission for her to mother him, because that is a weakness for him. That is an emotional weakness. That is a soft spot. And he is all consumed with portraying power and strength and making people afraid of him. So you can't have mommy around going, but Aemond, you should do this. No, that's not good. That's not what we're doing here. So yeah, he's removing her from the council. He's removing her from, he's like saying, no, you don't have this connection to me. You can't touch my heart and make me cry. I did need that, but that was years ago. We're past that now. It's too late. So that's how I took that. Yeah.
And do you think it came as a big surprise to her? Like, I mean, I was kind of like, she's a woman at a table of men, and this is like a medieval setting. I mean, this stuff is happening even now, right? Like there are women in boardrooms and who are not having a voice. So it just seems surprising to me that she was surprised, or was she just pretending to be surprised?
Well, everyone's surprised when it's not them. When someone looks at them and say, you're the odd man out. She has experience that obviously would be helpful. If I were Aemond, I'm different. I'm cut differently, but Alicent could have been an ally to him, but I wouldn't have wanted her advice necessarily in the council for the reason you're saying. I would have used her as the advisor after I left the council meeting. I would have gone to her and say, okay, he said this, he said that. What do you think they're after? What do you think they're, what can you tell me about these people that you've known for 20 years? That kind of thing. But he doesn't, that's the arrogance part, is like, he doesn't need that help. He's been watching everyone. He's been watching Aegon. He's been watching the adults, and he's basically judged everyone. as not doing a good job. And so now he is stepping in to do the good job. I think here's my prediction is that Otto and Aemond are going to be on the same page when Otto gets there.
Yeah, because I think I recall when he was having that, that sit down with, Sir Kristen Cole, when they were sitting down before Otto came in, and they were talking both about he refers to him as his grandsire, which I kind of think that's a cool name, and then he was also talking about his mother, and then Cole actually kind of defended her, so it was interesting. I feel kind of like there is some respect there that he has. I think he probably thinks that Aegon was an idiot for sacking his grandfather, but I feel like it sort of feels like Joffrey and Tywin, like Tywin or Joffrey had absolute respect for Tywin. And I feel like that maybe Aemon has that similar kind of respect, and that they would be kind of, as you mentioned, be on the same page.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see because at some point Aemond might want to take a risk that Otto doesn't. But I read them as similar as far as ruthless and cold, but also strategic. And like I said, I think Aemond has also copied some of Otto's techniques in running these meetings and things. So we will see.
One of the things I was thinking, and this is probably because he's a young person, like, why would you go into a meeting and then immediately alienate these people who are trying to help you? I mean, it's one thing to sack your mother. Maybe he didn't think it was appropriate for her to be on the council, but you call Larys a toad, you stand threateningly behind the Lannister guy. I think he was okay with the other two dudes. You know what I mean? Like, why do that? Like, that's the worst staff meeting ever, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, first of all, Ironrod got a big kick out of the way Aemond handled Larys. It was very funny. So it's two-part thing. First, when Larys begins his little, well, you haven't really named a hand. You see Ironrod just kind of go, oh, brother, and then when he gets called a toad, it's just like smirking. So
it was pretty funny because I
got a kick
insult.
out of that.
That's a huge insult, I'm assuming, in Westeros, to call someone a toad.
You toad. Yeah, he set him up for it too. And Aemond smiled. As soon as Larys began the wheedling routine, Aemond had a big smile on his face, and he was just like, oh, yeah, you can't help yourself, can you? Good. I've been looking forward to this moment. So to answer your question, this is Game of Thrones politics. There's nobody's really your friend. And he just doesn't have any illusions about that. So everyone's going to do their job and stuff, but we're not here to make people feel warm and fuzzy. This is a cutthroat room. If you don't pull your weight, you get fired or maybe executed. So that's the incentive. It's the stick instead of the carrot. Viserys always using the carrot, right? And so Aemond he's more of a stick kind of guy, and he has the biggest dragon. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he has the biggest dragon, and everyone started being afraid of him once he killed somebody. And so he's just embraced it and gone with it, and this is who he is now.
Now, speaking of Viserys, because he came back for a couple of scenes, which is really, really interesting. We had Millie Alcock come back as young Rhaenyra. We had Lena come back. And we've been talking about, like, is it the drink that he was given? Is Alice Rivers doing some kind of magic on him? What have you? So, what did you think about Paddy Cosendine coming back for this episode? First off,
well, I'm pulling up some of the notes that I made from that episode because I had a few things that struck me about what was going on there. Let's see here. Was it this one? So many documents.
Dante, I have to look at her dress. I didn't actually have a proper look at it because, as you mentioned, that was the first time we sort of saw her in that. We had gone from her being on the child bed to the pyre, right? So I will have to look at that. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, so
Jojen paste. By the way, do you think it's Jojen paste or do you werewood paste?
No, it's tea. It's tea.
It's tea. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't make weirwood paste with boiling water. I'm pretty sure that would melt the brains, and the
No, I
consistency
know
would
when
be
you and I
wrong.
were when we were on your stream, like there was some discussion about it, and I had no idea. I was
You
just
can
like,
see
I
the
have no clue.
leaves in her bowl on the
Okay,
table, and then
sure.
it seems like she's crushing up the leaves and then
Yeah.
adding the hot water to it, and then grabbing a clump of the bloody leaves and schlocking that into
Hmm.
the cup, and then he's drinking that. So it's effectively bloody weirwood tea, and obviously it has some psychedelic properties. So it's kind of like they took the shade of the evening preparations and said, well, shouldn't the weirwood leaves be psychoactive too? So what if you made tea? So it's like Jojen paste light,
Hmm.
effectively. But Jojen paste is used to awaken a green seer's gifts when he's in a tree throne. So far as
Hmm.
we know, that's not the context here. So it's not the same
Yeah,
substance,
that's what
not the
Raven
same
says. Saying.
usage.
Okay,
But
so
I like so I liked most of it. It's going on a bit long,
mhm.
but I like the embracing the use of flashback. I think TV shows should do that more. It's very poignant. I really enjoyed how they reran the conversation about Air for a Day, but with different emotional qualities. It really was a great storytelling method. So originally, both men are angry. Okay. And the Kingsguard
Mm.
are in between them with swords. And Daemon is like doing this. And Viserys has got his sword. And it's all swords and anger. And this time, there's no Kingsguard. Viserys is leaning on his sword more like a crutch. He's not brandishing it. He's sobbing. His head is down, and he's hanging on to it. And Daemon is very sorrowful. Same dialogue, but delivered differently. Now the real emotions are laid bare because fear is a secondary emotion. Fear is not a primary emotion. Like they're afraid of their sadness and their vulnerability, and anger feels strong. And so both of them are raging at each other when really they're very sad and hurt, and they can't get to that. And so this rerunning the conversation, it's showing the real emotions that are under there and how sad and broken Viserys is and how lonely. And this allows Daemon to get to the point of having this moment of comforting Viserys, the thing he should have done but didn't do, and now he's doing it in his dreams. So this is obviously pretty effective therapy, essentially.
Yeah, so he ends up someone was saying that they think that it was Otto who originally went in and comforted Viserys while Emma was lying on the table. Um, I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting that he's like, I should have been there. This is what I should have done. I found it really touching. So Bex and I were talking about this after the show aired. She messaged me, and I personally feel this is my favorite episode of this season. I know a lot of people haven't been thrilled by the idea that Daemon's been at Harrenhal. He's a really fascinating character for me. I think that they've really fleshed him out more so than I thought he would be fleshed out. I thought he was going to be more, aggressive and so on, but they're showing some of his inner turmoil he's having. And I think we mentioned there's a little bit of Oedipus, there's a little bit of, we were talking about mythology. So I feel like there's a little bit of Greek theater in this. There's a little bit of Roman theater, stage. So what are your feelings about like, I guess if by next episode, if he hasn't left there, you're going to probably be pissed, but it's looking like he will be, right? But so I know you said you really enjoyed this episode, probably your second favorite of the season. So what were your thoughts on how we're sort of following along with Daemon?
Well, the thing about the Oedipus myth is that it's actually about a prophecy of doom that people are trying to avoid. And so I think that is the reason
Mm.
to bring it in. It doesn't really have, it seems to be a bit of a stretch for me because I don't like the Daemon sleeping with his mother. I guess the idea is just like anything that's Targaryen appears to his ego. And so he wants to sleep with it. And then the real thing that's going on here is that Daemon embodies the archetype of what George is writing about with Targaryen dragon lords. Okay, so I
Yeah.
talked about at the beginning how there's the superiority. Because I can ride dragons, all these other things follow. I should be a king. You should serve me. I should have power of life and death over you. I should be a Valerian emperor, and you should be my slave, etc., etc. And so what Daemon is held on to is essentially might makes right. it's the most distilled, ruthless form of the Game of Thrones player. It's like, if you're strong enough to take it, then you do. And if you're not strong enough, then too bad. That's Daemon's philosophy. That's Jaime's philosophy when he's young, to a lesser extent. And so I compared it to the move fast and break things people, the Silicon Valley people who are all about breaking the rules and disrupting and, ask permission later and just do it. And that's kind of what Daemon embodies. Like, he just does what he wants and doesn't really think about the consequences. So Harrenhal is satisfying because these dreams are forcing him to think about the consequences. The bag he's left Rhaenyra holding. Are you keeping our daughters safe? Why weren't you there to comfort me? His brother asks him. So all of his recklessness and all of his ego-driven sort of power mania, now this has had consequences for years, and I wasn't really admitting that to myself. So that's what I take out of it. It's really, it doesn't have anything to do, in my opinion, with Daemon being a green seer or Bloodraven's. I don't think any of that's going on, but I think this is some heavy duty therapy that is going on so that Daemon can sort of, I guess, reunite with Rhaenyra and sort of give us another moment of them kind of working together, which will be probably satisfying, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I watched a TV series where it was people going to a spa, but it turned out that the person running the spa was giving everybody psychotropic drugs, and people were like tripping balls or whatever. But it would force them all to sort of like confront all of these issues that they had in their personal lives. So by the end of it, they're all like extremely raw, but I think they all kind of come out on the other side of things because of this. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. But as I said, for me, Daemon's become an extremely compelling character. I feel that they could have made him very one-dimensional, two-dimensional, I should say. But I think they've really fleshed him out. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get more from him.
I think
And Matt Smith, of course, is amazing.
A minute ago, I'm not sure if I said it right or not. What I meant to say was that anger is not a primary emotion. Fear is the primary emotion. Anger is what covers it up. I thought I explained that. So like,
you did.
The men are afraid of their vulnerability, and so they turn to anger instead. That's why I'm saying anger. When someone's angry, there's always something beneath that you can get to. And for them, it's like fear of vulnerability, fear of sadness. I can relate to that a lot, honestly. I have struggled with dealing with sad feelings all my life. Sad things have happened to me, very emotional. It's hard to process. And as an adult, I had to sort of realize, like, I can't even listen to sad music really, because it's just like too much for me almost. It's like, I need to get better about that. I need to be able to sit with that emotion. Because if you run from sadness all the time, you will have that running from things energy that Daemon does have.
Yeah. Now, and then sort of a nice juxtaposition to Daemon, we have Simon, who's become sort of a fan favorite, right?
Simon's great.
He's awesome. And I was
Nobody saw that coming at all.
No.
He's a nothing character in the books. He's been a delight.
Yeah. And someone even wrote, I was telling this last week, someone wrote on Twitter, this diva, which I think really sums him up. First of all, he is so well dressed. Gorgeous outfits. Like,
he feels the most medieval of any character.
Does. He is. Yeah. And the actor is amazing. But so he does give a little bit of levity, I feel, in some of those scenes. And even Alice, I mean, she's kind of charming. But I do wonder, so why do you think that Daemon has sort of turned to her as a confidant? Like, I feel like he almost, even though she's supposed to be a servant and a wet nurse or whatever she's supposed to be, we don't really know in the show. I think he refers to her as a healer. Simon does. But why do you think he kind of looks to her as being someone that he could talk to?
She has power.
Okay.
It's the only thing Daemon respects. He respects people that have power and don't show fear. And so she's not afraid of him and has mystical knowledge. And so those two things capture his attention. And if you look at the women that Daemon is paired with in the books in totality, they all are like magical women or dragon riders or something like that. So,
Well, Mysaria, I mean, she obviously had something. It could be that she
She's
was putting it
presented as a
on.
more magical character in the books, and she is an incredibly powerful character because she started on square 0 or -5, you might even say, and has amassed all this power in Flea Bottom, which is a forum that Daemon appreciates and respects. Like, if you can be Lord of Flea Bottom, like Mysaria and Daemon both rule Flea Bottom in various ways. They are two of the power players there, so that's a mutual respect point.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you want to talk about Rhaenyra? There's a couple of things about her. One, there was, we were talking about her in the council, but she did that smack to that dude.
Kung Fu
Uh,
action Rhaenyra.
yeah, it was funny. It felt a little, I don't know, like I was like, is this like a Danny thing? I couldn't quite figure that out. Like I should have, like it kind of reminded me when Danny was talking to Varys. Like if you like betray me, I'm gonna burn you alive. Like I don't know. What did you think of what was going on there?
So I read it as, I compared it to the Alicent scene from last episode where she's at the table and she's disassociating and there's all this talking around her and she's just like shrinking in.
Hmm.
So Rhaenyra's walking down the hall and there's this Bartimaeus blah 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 blah, and she's just like, and it's just like sort of closing in, and even the walls of the thing are like slanted in, and it's just like very claustrophobic, and then she just like breaks the tension of it, and that helps catalyze her towards action because she's had this caged problem of not being able to do anything. Just nobody wants me to do anything. Like she's getting sarcastic about it now, like a friggin', she's going back to her 14-year-old angsty teenager roots. Like, oh, no one wants me to get killed, so I guess I can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
So that slap
kind
is
of,
like
yeah.
her just breaking, and also a good idea. If we're just talking about politics, she's got to find ways to command the council meeting. These people will take a mile, and she has given them too many inches. And yeah, a slap is the least, it's a context appropriate rebuke, is what I said on the live stream. Like, that's something in that society that you do when someone is out of line. You slap them across the face if you have standing to do that. It's a specific thing to say, you're out of line. The next move might be like tearing your tongue out or throwing you in the cells or taking your lands from you or something serious. So I thought it made a lot of sense as far as like the writing for her character and just the character in that moment. Like that's what Rhaenyra would do, I felt like.
Yeah, and also Alicent, of course, slapped Kristen, and then it turned into this weird sexual thing. But to each his own. I'm not going to.
I did not make that parallel. Very
Well,
unsexy
no, but
Bartimaeus
no, but
Celtica.
what I'm trying to say is that I think it's usually it's a bit of a power that a woman will have. I'm trying to remember if Cersei slapped somebody. I feel like she did. Maybe
It's the same boiling over energy,
it's the
isn't it?
boiling over. Yeah, it's sort of. Hi, Vanessa. It's sort of yeah. Do men slap other men? I don't know that it's as common of a thing. It tends to be more of a woman thing. At least in historically speaking, I don't know. It's not acceptable in 2024.
That's a good question. It feels like it should have happened if George
gloves,
hasn't.
maybe
With the gloves, yeah.
With their leather gloves, in their swashbuckling days or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Okay, so then you have the slap, and then it's followed by the kiss, and the internet basically lost their minds over that, and it got like, IMDb got like review bombed, and I was looking at some comments from people. The whole thing was super weird because
very
yeah,
very segmented reaction. Like the review bombing is coming from some countries overseas where it's a little more homophobia, I guess, is common. And then the fandom, for the most part, didn't really overreact to this. They overreact to everything, but most people, there's a lot of people that obviously get really excited about it. And then other people just kind of shrugged, because I think Rhaenyra and Mysaria are both people that are presented as carnal sexual people. Targaryens in general are. It's a tense war situation. It was very believable. To me, it was a complete shoulder shrug. Like, it was fun. Didn't really surprise me. It didn't seem like, oh, this is cheesy. They're just putting in girl kissing to be exciting. It made sense for the characters. And the more important thing is that Rhaenyra is coming to trust Mysaria. And that makes sense for a lot of reasons on the show. And it makes sense if you know where Fire and Blood is going. So I think that's the main reason why I was like, oh, okay, I can see this.
Hi,
It's because,
Santavia.
yeah.
Yeah, and also, and do you think that Rhaenyra should trust Mysaria? Do you
Yes,
think that you do?
she needs
Okay.
information. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's always trust but verify in this
Mm-hmm.
world. So trust maybe is going a little too far, but should she use her as master of whispers? Yeah. Does Mysaria have good advice? Yeah. Is Mysaria trying to help her win? Yeah, I think she is.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of that, what do you think about some of the strategies they've been doing? Because this is one of the things I was sort of thinking. I think I said this to
Good
my husband.
strategies for
Yeah.
where her position. Yeah.
One of the things, so one of the main complaints that Rhaenyra has is she's essentially grounded, right? She can't go anywhere. She can't get on her dragon. I mean, she sort of can do short trips like we saw, but she can't go off and fight and do one of those things because something could happen. So this is what I was saying to my husband. I'm like, you know what? This is actually perfect because one of the things women are really, really good at is we can figure out ways to kind of fuck other people up. Like women apparently are the worst at bullying, but psychological bullying, not physical bullying.
Okay.
So by
The Mean
sitting
Girls
around,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, so by sitting around, like, what is something we could do that would really, um, throw a wrench into the Greens' like plans? And one of the things I thought was really interesting is that Aemond had said, "Why are they mad at us?" And it's like, because you're in power. It would be kind of like being angry at the conservatives if something is going on in the country at the moment that where the Dems are in charge.
Right.
So you're not going to be mad at the cons. You're
Right.
going to be mad at the Dems, right? So
Right.
I thought that. So what did you think about their whole plan
Well, I think that
with the
they're
food and everything?
showcasing how like occupying the Iron Throne is kind of a burden. Like Rhaenyra on Dragonstone has a certain advantage. Like the whole game is to occupy the seat of power. So you want to have the throne. But when you do, you have this burden of having to be responsible and being perceived as responsible. Rhaenyra on Dragonstone can sort of take these outsider strategies. And I really liked this plot because it served two purposes. One, Mysaria is sending food to people she cares about. She genuinely cares about the small folk. That's the one thing we know about her.
Mm-hmm.
So she's helping the small folk and undermining the Greens at the same time. So this is in contrast to where they told us that Tyrion was clever, but then he wasn't actually doing clever things. And so, especially towards the last few seasons, and you're like, wait, he's not actually clever. um, this was a clever plan. They set it up well, and it works, kind of the way they want to. So I thought it was Rhaenyra food stamp. So I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it a lot, and I think what they're doing with the character of Mysaria makes sense. I was, from a story writing point of view, thinking about Fire and Blood before the show started. I was not sure. It's like Mysaria is a weird character. She just kind of seems like a schemer that does what the story needs to at certain points, shifting loyalty. What's her motivation? I know this character. I know what her motivation is.
Yeah.
And she's an interesting character. She's a little bit morally gray. She will kill people and stuff, but she generally is team Smallfolk. She has all this trauma and stuff. Although she did change her story a bit on why she can't have kids from I took a procedure to make sure I could never have kids to my dad abused me and now I can't have kids, which is some people have brought up as a reason to think that she may be manipulating Rhaenyra, changing her story a little bit to get in with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be possible, but I still think she is trying to help Rhaenyra win.
Yeah, but before they sent the food, they did this really interesting thing. So they had this plant go into a pub, and I think Ulf is sitting at the other table, and they have a woman just sitting there talking all this propaganda, which we know is not true, right? About how they're having those banquets and they're living high on the hog in the castle, and they're eating all this amazing food, while the people in the pubs and in the small folk are eating watery brown soup and fish. That's all they have basically. So that was sort of like, kind of planting the seed of doubt there, I suppose, hoping that.
I didn't think she was lying. She said
you
her
didn't?
girls got invited to the Red Keep and fed well. That's a verifiable lie. Like we've met her girls. One of the
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure Aemond didn't call them to the Red Keep so that he could snuggle with his woman somewhere and like
Uh,
let everyone
oh,
believe that he's entertaining sex workers? I
so
thought
you
that
so you didn't think that Mysaria hired her to do that? I got the impression that Mysaria had paid her to do that.
I didn't make that connection, but maybe I missed something. I don't know. I didn't see Alinda, who has been
Yeah.
sent as an agent. I didn't see her
Yeah,
connect with the madam.
yeah, we just saw her arrive at her door, right? And then and then it didn't get picked
Oh,
up
did
again.
she arrive at the madam's house?
It wasn't the madam's house. It was the servant who,
Sylvie.
Sylvie. Yeah, she showed up at her door at the end of the last episode, and then so that character, who was at the pub, I thought she was a plant from Mysaria because the idea would be, okay, let's let everyone know how much food that the castle has, that all
Uh-huh.
the upper class have, the lords and
That would
ladies.
make sense. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just think
and
I just
then
missed
we'll
that
send in the
clue.
food, and then that'll just double down on it. That's what I thought. You guys can
Okay.
let me know in the chat.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Alinda talked to Diana, who was with the madam at the
Yes.
pub.
Okay. Okay. You
I'm
guys
waiting
are
to see
awesome.
what Sylvie's angle is. She
Yes,
got
me too. She's
she's
the one who had the abortion, right? Is she the one who had
no, that's the blonde girl. That's
Sylvie?
no.
Oh, I'm confused then.
Sylvie is the woman that Aemond lies with.
Yes. Okay. She's the older woman that is like a mother figure for him.
And she's the
Correct,
one
right?
talking about her girls got and so
Yes,
she's the
exactly. She
madam.
was the
That's
one
why I
at the
said she's
pub,
the
but the
madam.
one who was the one that Alinda went to her door. I thought she had been a former servant
Yeah, that's
in the keep,
what's her name?
and someone had said she was the one who Aegon had
Aegon victimized. Yeah,
victimized,
absolutely.
and then they
That's
gave her the
I
moon
just
tea.
forget her
Okay,
name.
okay. I'm sorry. It's so many. Diana, thank you.
Diana.
So many characters. I have a friend who always says so many buttons. I feel like that. By the way, how do you feel about all of the names with AE in it?
You just did a gallop there. I don't know.
It's
You
just it's
brain
hard to keep
blasted me.
track, right?
I'm still on
Diana.
figuring out the names of these people. So I think it would make sense if this is all Mysaria's operation. But like I said, is Sylvie mad? Was she mad at Aemond because Aemond sort of disowned her there in front of Aegon? Is she now against him? Or is this like she doesn't really care about the princes. She only cares about the people. And she was just trying to gentle Aemond while he was there, but there was no actual loyalty. Hard to say. I think they're going to give us more clarification on that plot as it continues to unfold.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess what I thought was maybe she'd be like, okay, I am loyal to Aemond to a point, but if someone's willing to pay me some cash to come, do a little assignment, I probably would take that little job on the side. I don't know. I mean, may not end well for her. I don't know. Because if Aemond, because I did think it was a little bit dangerous to be, you know,
very big mouths in that tavern. Yes.
Very big mouths. And I did sort of think that probably was a little bit dangerous because it could potentially get back to the castle. It could be, maybe Larys has spies there. And if it got back to them, that could be bad for her, is what I thought. So
yeah, it should be. We should remember that, like, someone like Sylvie owes Aemond nothing. Mm-hmm. She owes Aemond nothing. There's like, Aemond showed up with money and paid her to do whatever. Like, that's not, don't get it twisted, guys. Like,
I think, Santavia, what I'm saying is, okay, let's say that the castle does have all this amazing food and everything. That's totally fine. And she's telling the truth. But they may not look fondly on her saying it with such, like,
oh no, I agree with you. I was making a separate point.
Them, right? Like, it would be like me, like, look at the world right now. People are constantly saying, oh my God, look at the 1%ers. They're getting all this stuff and look what we get. We get nothing. Or, now they can't throw you in jail for that in our countries, but in certain countries they might, they might throw you in jail for that. So in a democracy, you don't, but it's not a democracy. It is a, what do you call it? It is a hierarchy.
I think that Larys is a bad master of whisperers. If he was
Yeah.
doing his job, people would be more afraid to speak treason. When Bloodraven was handed the
Mm.
king and Master Whisperers, people wouldn't speak that kind of treason. So Laurie's, I've
Monarchy.
observed
Thank
that a
you.
few times. That like Laurie's should have been on top of Blood and Cheese, and he
Oh,
wasn't.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
we were talking about it. What if he actually knew about it? What if
could
he
have.
was,
No,
you
because
know?
that's where you have to go, because it seems very incompetent for him to not have had word of it.
Yeah, we had a chat about that, a long chat about it, that possibly, he might have just let it happen. I don't know. So it's really interesting, but unfortunately, the showrunners, I mean, we can only kind of go with what we see right in the show, unless now. By the way, speaking of that, what do you
No,
think when
hold on. I've got a
so go
thought I
ahead.
don't want to lose on
Sure,
the same
absolutely.
conversation. Sylvie may have been turned against Aemond by this event where she went to the Red Keep, because it's like, oh, well, what have you, but you used to be this nice boy or whatever that would come and be vulnerable. And now you're playing king and you're being all tough, and you had all these girls up to the Red Keep. And I can see your excess, and I can see that you don't care. And now she's kind of like, well, this guy, screw this guy, So that could be part of it too.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say though, but the sheep were not for the rich. The sheep were for the dragons.
Dragons.
That's the tithe, or whatever they call it, the tithe for the dragons. Uh, but I'm gonna go with, like, yeah, absolute monarchy. But I'm gonna go with what Carolina is saying, and she says Draco I can't even say it. Dracocracy. I can't say it.
Jacrocracy.
Dracocracy. It's a
Jacrocracy.
dracocracy.
That's
Yeah,
I think that's
absolute
what's going
monarchy.
on those murals.
Yeah. Um, no, what I was going to ask you is, what do you think of when, okay, like, do you sort of, when you're watching the show, do you like to sort of figure it out yourself? Or what do you think of when, the writers, the showrunners, they write the story and then they put it out there and then they go and do an explainer on everything?
I think they're on my
Let me tell you all the subtext and all the stuff going on behind this. I'm not talking about the technical aspects. I'm talking about, you know what I mean?
They're trying to take our money, Heidi. They're on our block. They're trying to do analysis. They should just make the show and shut the hell up. And they're,
Uh,
what's annoying is when I flip on my HBO on my TV, they never put House of the Dragon at the top, but they're always trying to get me to watch their extra House of the Dragon content. I have to scroll down 4 menus deep to find the show that they know I want to. That's the only thing I turn their app on for, to watch House of the Dragon. But they're like, how about how the House of the Dragon was built or whatever. And I do watch all those, but
yeah.
the ones where Ryan is and the writers are explaining the things suck. I like hearing the actors talk about their motivation, because we understand that the actors have their own little unique sort of take on the character that doesn't necessarily have to line up with everything else. But when Ryan and the other guys try to explain, guys and gals, the writers try to explain what's going on, that's really crossing the line for me. Like, let us interpret the art.
Yeah, I sort of feel like that too. And in the old days, we didn't have that. This is sort of a modern sort of thing. So I do like watching the technical aspects of it. But even you're okay with the actors, but even Bex, who was on last week with us, she said she doesn't even like sort of hearing their take on it, because she doesn't necessarily think that they're right. I mean, it is art, right? And we as the viewers, sometimes it is really up to our own interpretation. And that's why I love having these discussions with you and others, because it's like, well, I interpreted it this way and you interpreted it that way. I love that, because we all come from different places, and just to have our own perspectives is really cool.
Yeah, growing up in the 90s, all of my rock idols, they never explained their lyrics. They'd put them in the jacket, but I'll be damned if those were complete sentences that made any sense. I mean, Deftones, Radiohead, stuff like that. Like, you don't get an explanation. It means, I mean, if you ask them, like, whatever you think it means. I feel
Yeah.
like that's how art functions the best, because it leaves space for the other person to engage with it. So yeah, I'm surprised that they're doing it again after Dave and Dan made such asses of themselves with that in the first show. But
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, Blue Oyster Cult, who, more cowbell, Blue Oyster Cult, they, many years ago, they said that they never put their lyrics in their jacket because they like the idea of people not knowing, like, the words, and that they would sing their own words, and they always got a hoot out of that. They thought it was awesome. So, and there's a lot of famous songs like that where people, the ants are my friends are blowing in the wind, or something like that. So I kind of, yeah, I don't want to be told. I don't want to be told what my own experiences are. So it's sort of, it would be, imagine having an explainer. Sorry, imagine having a musician after they release their album do a whole explainer of why the songs and why they did the songs,
Some
and I
people
think,
would like that.
okay, maybe they would.
I
But look
have
what happened
never
with J-Lo
engaged with much of
recently.
that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that much about the personal lives of most of my favorite musicians, and I love music. Like, I'm in bands all my life. I'm very into music, but I really am just trying to take apart the riffs. I'm only so interested in what vineyard they own, or I don't know, whatever they're doing.
Actually, I was just gonna say because like J-Lo did this really terrible movie recently, and she did it behind the scenes and then kind of released it all at the same time. She totally got raked over the coals for
Who
that.
did?
J-Lo, she did like
Oh,
a movie about her life or something. It
okay.
was like a vanity project, right?
Yeah.
And then but then she did the behind the scenes, and that made it all the worse, I think. So anyway,
Yeah,
but
Maynard's Vineyard. I've been
yeah.
to Arizona. I've been to Maynard's wine shop in Jerome. That's why I said that. Like, I've been to Maynard's wine shop. I drank his wine, okay? But it's
That's
only because I
awesome.
happened to be there. I was in Jerome for a different reason. It was like, oh, look, it's Maynard's. I guess I gotta go. But Maynard's also really cool. But I don't know much about him other than he has that. Like, I don't. Yeah. So I think the interesting thing here is just the way media is consumed nowadays. Everyone does want to be in the director's chair. That a lot of people don't want to be immersed in the story. They want to immediately go to arguing about the changes and how it should have been and what they would have done. And I mean, I don't want to be the old guy shaking my fist at the youngins, but yeah, it's just a different way to consume media, you know.
Now we only have a little bit of time, a few minutes left. So before we go, first off, do you want to do a rating on this episode?
Yeah, I mean,
You don't
I
have
said
to.
number
Just
2 was I gave that one like a 9.5. I would call
hmm
this one like an 8.7, 8.75,
hmm
8.75.
Yeah, I probably personally I'll give it a 9. Maybe even 9.25. It's definitely my favorite. I have to go back. I'm not sure compared to season 1. I'll have to I feel like I'm going to need to rewatch season 1 and 2 as a whole to sort of get the full experience of it. And then secondly, any sort of thoughts on the next episode? Anything you're excited about? Oh, Alana has 8.5. Okay, pretty close.
8.5. Yeah, the next, so I'm looking forward to I'm hoping Otto will be back. Maybe
Oh
he'll
yeah.
take one more, but I'm looking forward to seeing him back. I'm looking forward to seeing more Dragon Seed stuff. I mean, I love everything they're doing there.
hmm
And obviously we're getting to the point where we're going to find out if they're going to break the canon, if we all got a riot or not, or I don't know. We'll see. But
Well, we know based on the picture that we've got, like Ulf, and I don't think this is a spoiler because it was in the first trailer, but we see Ulf and we see Adam and we see
Hugh.
Hugh, the three of them at the table. So we know that Rhaenyra is going to have them there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get there and how that all plays out.
I'm most interested in the character of Hugh because how they've set him up. He is a very dastardly character, an ambitious character in the books, but they've given some different potential motivations for this guy. So I've been
Mm-hmm.
calling him Hard Hugh, Hammer, and Sickle because he's man of the people, Comrade Hugh, and
Yes.
Hammer Liberation Front. So I'm curious to see what kind of angle on the Smallfolk he gives us. I'll say that.
Sure. Some people were saying he kind of looks like Ned Stark. And maybe it's just his hair and his physique.
I mean, he's got like dad energy,
hmm
He's got the
Yeah,
dad beard, very
for sure.
majestic.
What did you think? Someone was making jokes about the cabbages. I don't know what that was about. Is that an inside joke about the cabbages?
There's the guy he punched the guy and took the
Yes.
cabbages. So
Took the
I was
cabbages.
disappointed at the lack of class solidarity from Hugh,
Yeah,
but I guess he's got a
absolutely.
sick daughter.
It's a
So
doggy dog world. I was actually saying it was interesting because it looked like they were using cabbages on Aegon. And I mentioned that this is actually not a weird thing because women, when they have mastitis, use cabbage leaves. Did you know that? Like if you have mastitis, you put cabbage leaves on your breasts. and it helps with the inflammation. So
I did not know that.
that is like a real world thing that they were doing. Oh, did they use cabbages in Last Airbender? Well, cabbages have so many, it's a class thing too, right? Like people throwing rotten cabbages, or I think even in Monty Python, they were throwing cabbages. It's just a thing.
I took the poultice to be maybe like a seaweed or a kelp something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a Renaissance doctor, so
I just thought it looked like steamed cabbages. That's what I thought, but I'm not exactly sure. Um,
well, all I
we
know is that they deliberately copied the camera angles from Misery with Aemond standing over the bed, and you've
You're
got
kidding.
Aegon's view of the foot of the bed, and Aemond
Oh,
looming. Like
oh my God, I have to rewatch that.
that was
I
straight
have
out
to
of
rewatch
Misery.
that.
Yeah.
So, Stephen King, like Kathy Bates
Yeah.
is the misery you're referring to,
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
With the
Um,
author that she breaks his legs
oh
because
yeah, it's so
it keeps him in
awful.
bed. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Lynn,
Eamon Ewan is really leaning into the horror movie inspiration, and I
mhm.
just love how it's coming across. It's delightful. This is why we watch shows like this. So
Yeah, I don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan,
yeah, of
but
course.
if you watched last season, they kind of leaned heavily into the horror trope there as well. And I loved it. Like a lot of people, we don't have to get into Lord of the Rings, but anyway, are you going to be watching that coming up?
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose so.
Well,
I
don't
had
be so enthusiastic about it, David.
yeah. I mean, I tried to
Uh,
like the first season. I like some stuff. I just shook my head to shake my head at a lot of it, but we'll see.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before we let you go, what do you have coming up? Like, I know you have lots of stuff coming up, but do you want to give a little plug to anything you're doing?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a Saturday live stream this week. To talk about Aemond in particular. And then we just, we go live every Sunday after the episode. So if you need a post game, come on down. If you haven't seen my two new videos, I've got Dreams Come from Dragons. So that's Ice and Fire theory lore. And then How to Claim Your Dragon, which is a little bit of show and a little bit of book lore.
That's really fun. How do you come up with your ideas, by the way? Do they just sort of like, does Alice Rivers pop it into your head, or how does that come about?
Oh, Rhaegar. They all come from reading Rhaegar. No, I have a manager.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, and we brainstorm. We've got a notebook of ideas that he keeps. So we've created a lot. At this point, I've got a backlog of really good ideas for videos that I want to make. I'm just waiting for the season to end. I feel like Wins is going to come soon, and so I'm going to try to make my best ideas like before Wins comes out and get those out. So
you feel pretty confident that that's going to happen?
it's got to happen sooner or later. The longer
Yeah.
it goes, the more likely it is to be coming soon.
Yeah, yeah. It felt like there was some hints of it, just with George, his blogs and so on. Now, after this show, is there anything you're going to be covering?
What's that?
After this show, is there any other shows you're going to be covering, like aside from A Song of Ice and Fire lore?
No, I mean, I'm still stuck on Dark and 1899, and if Baron and Bo make another show, I'll be all over that. But
well, I had you on for Shogun. We had a good chat about that.
Yeah.
And
Well, Shogun season 2, I'll be into, but
yeah. By the way, I'm doing a panel with a bunch of the folks from there. Maybe would you consider? I shouldn't put you on the spot.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'll be considering.
Okay, great. Yeah, because they multiple Emmy nods, so many Emmys that they got for that.
I'm still stuck. My head is so stuck with 18. Did you watch 1899? No, I'm sorry, Dark.
Oh,
rather.
yes, we did. I did both. We did a stream about 1899.
That's okay. That's right.
And then you and I both love Dark. And I did like Three Body Problem. I know that was Dave and Dan, but I actually really enjoyed it, season 1. So David and I will be in touch. We'll try to find a project to do together. But anyway, David, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And you still have some time to go off and have some dinner.
Yes, it is dinner time for Dave.
Work on your video. Probably have a video to work on, right?
Well, thanks for having me on. I'll have you back again sometime soon after the season. And
yeah, I'd love to. We'll find some project that we both enjoy talking about. We always have something in common. All right, thanks everyone for joining tonight. We had a really great chat. Really lovely people, and thank you for everyone from David's channel who came over and visited. We really appreciate it. And Thank you so much. And I have a video coming out about the costumes. Well, I have a couple coming out about the costumes from House of the Dragon. So
As one
I'm,
would expect.
yeah. And so, the Jason Lannister, that's going to be on my top 10 of the season, just so you
Nice.
guys know. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.
I really liked
Bye.
Rhaenyra's dress this episode, didn't you? Isn't it better than her other ones?
I think actually her costumes have been really good this season. And that gray one you're talking about, the gray one, yes, it's really
Got
good.
a
And
little a better shoulder thing. It's very,
absolutely. And
yeah,
the belt, I got a really great close up of the belt, and it's got like two dragons breathing fire, but it's metal, like it's sort of like an overlay. So
nice.
it's been a bit frustrating trying to get pictures. This is one of the issues, right? I have sometimes. So I was able to finally on this episode get some good pictures. So yeah, for sure. Excellent costume.
Right on. Yeah. And thanks to everyone in the chat with the nice comments. Appreciate y'all. So thanks for having me on,
Yeah.
Heidi, and I'll see y'all
Yeah.
next time.
Okay, bye guys. Mwah.